Audio Jungle. గణేశ్వరం అజేంద్ర పూజిత విఘ్నేశ్వరం అజేంద్ర పూజిత విఘ్నేశ్వరం గణాతీతం భగపాద్మజేంద్ర గణాతీతం భగపాద్మజేంద్ర పూజిత జగద్విఘ్నేశ్వరం గణాతీతం కుంజర మంజర చంద్రం గణేశ్వరం కుంజర మంజర చంద్రం. థ్యాంక్ యూ శాస్త్రి. గణేశ్వరం.
A small cheer and great welcome makes a merry feast. May I now request our honorable head of the department, Dr. R. Meena Kumari ma'am, to welcome the gathering. A small cheer and great welcome makes a merry feast. May I now request our honorable head of the department.
Good morning, respected correspondent, beloved principal, chief guest of the day, Dr. Santosh, Group Manager, Grid Automation and Controls, Senior Researcher, Energy System Control, NREL USA, Dr. Sendilnathan, Dr. Sivachitra, my fellow colleagues and dear student friends. It's my pleasure and pride to take part and welcoming you all for the inauguration of our EEE Association for the year 2022-2021. Whatever the hard situations, the enthusiasm and commitment of our own students will not be put stop. One such example is this inauguration. When I proposed to start the association, the students are very enthusiastic and they volunteered and took a lot of effort for this inauguration. I'm very happy to share we are the pioneers to start the association at our institutions. So at this juncture, I'm very happy to welcome our correspondent, our principal, who are always supporting us to connect digitally and always support us to activate such activities. So I'm very happy to welcome you, sir. I'm very proud to welcome one of our alumni and the chief guest of the day, Dr. Santosh, who is very eagerly waiting to participate and is going to give a guest lecture to our students who is working at a reputed forum. I'm very happy to welcome all my fellow colleagues and the student friends for the inauguration of our EEE Association. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the office bearers of the association. So let me call one by one. So of this, the office bearers of the association for this academic year 2020. Our association staff advisors are Dr. S. Maheshwari and Mr. R. Ranjit Kumar. The secretary of the association is Mr. Sanjeev Kumar from Final EEE, and the treasurer of the association is Ms. S. M. Devasena, Final EEE. The additional secretaries of this association is Mr. Pradeep from Final EEE, Ms. Sri Jnanarathi from Final EEE, Ms. M. Preeti from Final EEE, and Mr. Bhuvaneshwaran Balaji from Final EEE. The joint treasurer of this association is Mr. A. Manikandan, third year EEE, and the joint secretaries are Mr. Gokul, Ms. Deepika Priya, Mr. Vinod Kumar, and Mr. Yoka Surya. The executive members of the association is Mr. Kamalesh Kumar from Final Triple E, Ms. Aarti from Final Triple E, Mr. Vinod from Final Triple E, Mr. Satyadarni from Final Triple E, Mr. Klotungan, third Triple E, Mr. Nishank, third Triple E, Mr. Shakti Anand, third Triple E, Snega from third Triple E, Gokulnath, second Triple E, Kartika, second Triple E, Mr. Nishant Kumar from second Triple E. Ms. Sneka, and the technical team for our association is Mr. Narendran, Mr. Dinesh, both from final here, Mr. Pugalalagan from second Triple E. The creative team of our association is P.S. Naveen Kumar of final Triple E, Ramakrishnan of third Triple E, Ms. Kavya of second Triple E. And the media team who worked for our association is Mr. Sarvesh, Mr. Nitish Kumar, and Mr. Rutra Prasad of second Triple E. Thank you, Sarvesh, for preparing a very fantastic video for the introduction of our office bearers. So once again, I welcome you all for the inauguration of Triple E Association. So I'm handing over the session to the comparing desk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for the warm welcoming. The efforts and the courage will never fail if the purpose and directions are known. Let me now invite Mr. K. Sanjeev Kumar, Secretary of Triple E Association, to deliver the secretarial address.
Respected correspondent to P. Sachinarthan sir, our beloved principal Dr. B. Baluswamy sir, our honorable head of the department Professor Dr. R. Minakumari ma'am, our respected chief guest, our alumni Dr. C. Veda sir, group manager and senior researcher NREL USA, and respected faculty advisors of the association Dr. S. Maheshwari ma'am and Mr. R. Ranjit Kumar sir, and honorable teachers, dear office bearers of Triple E Association, and all my friends. A pleasant morning to everyone. It's my privilege to welcome you all for this inaugural function of Triple E Association, and it's an esteemed pleasure in presenting secretary address in this auspicious occasion. Determination today leads to success tomorrow. Here, in this spectacular day of inaugural function, I, Sanjeev Kumar, final year of Triple E, honestly and truly taking the charge as Secretary of Triple E Association for the academic year 2020-21. I would like to announce the year plan of our Triple E Association for this academic year. We have planned most of the events in the virtual mode because of the pandemic situation. To know various opportunities in Triple E, we have planned to organize a technical webinar in the first week of September for second and third year students. As a part of encouraging students to learn, we have planned to conduct a quiz event in October. We have planned to organize a guest lecture for the benefit of students. In October, we have planned to organize a guest lecture for the benefit of students. On the same month, we have arranged a career guidance. On the same month, we have arranged a career guidance program to guide the students in the right path. During the month of November, we have planned to conduct a technical event for the students to develop their technical knowledge. We have planned to conduct a webinar in the month of December. We planned to conduct in the month of January. And the Intra-College Technical Symposium, ASME 2K21, is planned to conduct in the month of February. And in the month of March, Inter-College National Technical Symposium, Science Year 2K21, is scheduled to conduct. The most entertaining event of the association, the Intra-Departmental Cultural Program 2K21, is planned to organize in the month of March. Alarmed by the cultures, we have planned to end the programs of association 2K20 to 21 with validity in the same month. I humbly request everyone to extend their kind cooperation on this regard.
Thank you, Sanjeev Kumar, and we also wish to achieve the target in an effective way. Leadership is the ability to get the extraordinary achievement from the ordinary people. May I now request our respected correspondent, Thiru P. Sachidanandan sir, to deliver the presidential address.
Correspondent, sir. Correspondent, sir. Sir, you can share.
Good morning to all.
Good morning, sir.
I, Mr. Santosh Veda, our former correspondent, is the and our alumni, revered principal sir, Madam HOD, and other faculty members, and the emerging new office bearers of this EEE association. It is a great pleasure to you all, for me to see you all in this occasion, though the pandemic has prevented us to meet in person in a common hall. We are confined in our rooms to exchange our views and carry out our academic job. It is though if it is happened some 50 or 60 years back, this may not be possible. Because of the latest advance made in technology sector and our social communication area, we are able to interact with all of you. Technology has developed day and day, and is the compulsion of the time that we should develop the teaching methods and also the how to, and if we our colleges are reopened, how to keep distance and make effective academic activities. And though in the we are there are so many handicaps in communication, and without classrooms we are able to conduct more than 10,000 classes, and continuing our academic activities as regular as possible. I am very much hope that you are all were accustomed with these classrooms, and I wish that this upcoming year will see with all of you with new vigilance, and enthusiasm in learning. Though the industry has have a little uh, setback in the beginning of the pandemic, now industry is uh, emerging, and it has resumed. The production line is now gaining up, and also exports are gaining up. Hence, I wish you all the best for all of you for a best future. And with this new uh, few words, I wish you all the best for your future endeavor. Thank you, Nandal Jai.
Thank you, sir, for your words. Stepping ahead with your blessings. A kind note to the students. Attendance form has been posted in YouTube live chat. So please mark your attendance over there. Thank you.
The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who he's the one that gets the people to do the greatest thing. May I now request our beloved principal, Dr. V. Baluswamy sir, to felicitate the gathering.
Respected correspondent sir, our alumnus Dr. Santosh alumnus and chief guest of today's function, Dr. Santosh Sambamurthy Veda, Group Manager Grid Automation and Controls, Senior Researcher Energy System Control NREL USA, Head of the Department, Dr. Meena Kumari, Faculty Advisors, and the new team of office bearers headed by Sanjeev Kumar. Good morning to all of you. It's another great day that one of our oldest departments in KEC, EEE department, has organized the function, which is a function of the Students Association, which is meant for sharpening the skills of the students outside the classrooms. Now the entire world has become a digital world. Sometime before this lockdown, we have heard about digital world, online world, and we have heard our alumni and especially in people working in IT field, all the time working at home. At least 50% of the time we are hearing about our alumni working at home. Now we are hearing about the entire world working through digital method, entire world working and living on online methods. As the correspondent has rightly pointed out, and now we have many tools and technologies to continue our life, to continue our professional work through online methods. So thanks to the technologies, we are not stopped working, though we are facing this one of the severest crisis in the world, this COVID-19. So we are continuing our job through these online methods. So thanks to the good efforts of the Department of Electrical Engineering, you have organized a nice function with one of our respected alumni as the chief guest of today's function. I always stress upon the need that the students should learn things not only in the classroom but outside the classroom. In fact, learning to learn, that is one of the best methods to sharpening the skills. People like me, when I recall what I have studied in the class during the 5 years or 4 years of study in the college, and anyone like a senior person like Santosh Ramamurthy, if he can recall that all that he has studied in the classroom or outside, one can easily say that we have learned a lot outside the classroom. We have developed our skills outside the classrooms. Now we have several clubs, associations, and professional societies studies in the college only for this purpose, to develop our skills outside the classrooms. That is one of the most important purpose of this education. I wish this EEE association organizes several functions. I think secretary has already made a nice presentation about the agenda schedule of activities for this year, like technical seminar, guest lectures, symposium, and so on. This association should organize many programs for skill development of students. One of the things that I can suggest is you can organize a routine program, maybe once in 2 weeks. You can call it as extramural lecture through experts like Dr. Santosh. Maybe you can even fix a particular day, like Friday or Saturday, once in 2 weeks, so that the students will be eagerly waiting to listen to this type of lectures. Similarly, you can organize programs like workshops, quiz programs, competitions, even to prepare the students to meet the competitions, competitive examinations at the final year. Like yesterday, we were listening to our chemical engineering alumnus Kavita talking to our students about how to prepare for civil service examinations. So likewise, this association can organize programs exclusively for EEE students, like the preparation of the students for GATE or Indian Engineering Service, IES, are preparing the students for taking up higher studies abroad. Even for language skill development, like a few sessions, though we have an exclusive forum for that type of program, you can have some program to create awareness among the EEE students about the need to develop language skills, like Japanese language. Now everyone knows that if you develop skills in 2 or 3 levels in Japanese language, it's very easy to get jobs in Japanese companies within India or in Japan. Even programming skills, this type of programs should continue uninterrupted even during this lockdown period. Maybe in another few months, 2 or 3 months, you can have this type of programs. They hope the college will be able to open the college at least in about 2 to 3 months time. Everyone is eagerly waiting, not only faculty and management, but even students, parents, everyone is eagerly waiting to see the reopening of that college. Once the college reopens, then these programs can continue in more quantities and more quality. So with these few words, I wish the new team of office bearers headed by Sanjeev Kumar and Devasena great success, and I hope they will contribute a lot to the further skill development of the students in this EEE association. I wish this inauguration and these activities to come in the next few months a great success. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for your kind advice, and we always stick with your words. The combination of patience, perseverance, and persistence for the path of the success doesn't come in an easier way. The greater you feel when you achieve it. May I now request our dearest alumni and the respected chief guest, Dr. Santosh Amamurthy Veta, a group manager and senior researcher, NREL USA, to deliver the inaugural address.
Thank you very much for the introduction. This is an honor to be here. I really appreciate and thank you everyone for this opportunity. I want to thank the correspondent, Tirupati Sachidanandan sir, as well as the principal, Dr. Balaswamy sir. I think you have the right intention in mind. People like me have benefited from the benevolence of the KVIT Trust, and I am glad that you're continuing to bring that leadership to continue working on it. You know, when I told my parents that I'm doing this inaugural address, my parents were really excited. They were more excited than I told them I got my PhD or I got a job. because for them this was a very proud moment, much more, they've never been prouder about me in their lives. So I really want to thank the department and the college for this opportunity. I want to thank all the teachers at the EEE department, without whom I will not be where I am here right now. 8 years ago in 2004, well, that's now, oh, that's in 16 years now. I was in the same place as many of you are, looking to see, what do I want to do in life? Will I get a job? Will I be able to repay my educational loan? And it's sometimes you have to take one step at a time. You cannot look into these things into the future and decide what you want to do. It really comes down to developing the skills that you want to have and leveraging the resources that you have. Even right now, I still tell people about all the things that I learned from when I was at Kongu Engineering College. The first year I came to know about anything in electrical engineering was when Meena Kumari Madam and Subhashree Madam organized a workshop during my first year in Kongu Engineering College, where I was asked to be the comparer. And when I was there, I got to see all the new topics that are being discussed, and that's what motivated to pursue higher studies. And when I was in second year, I used to remember Meena Kumari Madam preparing for PhD and working on a PhD very hard. At that point, I did not understand at all. I said, well, she's already a professor. She's a great professor working in one of the top institutions in the country. What is she preparing for? And that's where you know that there is this passion, there is this drive for innovation that's driving her. So she was my role model. And I'm glad she's now the head of the department and she can bring that leadership to the entire department. I do also want to thank my professors like Sendilnathan sir, Sivachitra ma'am, Albert sir, Sheila madam, Raghupati sir, Manigandan sir, without whom I will not be where I am. So first of all, I want to start this off by thanking all of them for that. And Balasamy sir and Sachidanand sir, I will let you know, under the leadership of Meena Kumari madam and with the faculty like Albert sir and all the faculty at EEE, I can tell you the students are in very good hands and they're ready to solve the challenges of tomorrow. That being said, I want to just focus a little bit more on what can the students do preparing where you are looking forward into the future. Now, like I said, for you to come here, you had a lot of choices all along your path and you chose to be here. And that was not just one choice. It was a culmination of your choices. You started with saying, I want to focus on my studies. I want to go to a very big institution like Kongu Engineering College. You chose to come to electrical and electronics engineering. All of these are choices, and I will promise you that you have made the best choice you can all this time. So what is stopping you from the success that you want to get to? It's the mindset, the learning, like Professor Balasamy sir mentioned, learning to learn, that mindset. Also being curious. There are a lot of problems that the world needs solving. And here in EEE, in Kongu Engineering College, you're being given the skills, you're being given the experience, and you have the care and benevolence of people like Meena Kumari Madam helping you with guiding where you want to go. Make use of all of them. Please don't take them for granted, because once you step out of the college, I will tell you the world is a very bad place. It's a very difficult place. But in Kongu Engineering College, you're being trained for what is to come. So make sure you take this in the right mindset and work towards it. Like I mentioned, when I graduated in 2008, a lot of my peers got a job in a software company, right? That was the thing in 2008. Everybody got software jobs. My friends would tell me, why are you wanting to pursue higher studies when you already have another job? You're earning $40,000 rupees a month. What more do you need? I said, well, I'm really interested in learning more, given all the passion I've seen with learning and research and innovation. So the first point I would tell you is be focused. If you want to study more, if you're curious, and if you want to contribute a bigger role in the society, be focused on those goals. Don't get distracted by what is around. Another example I would tell you is, I am from a very modest background. People might say, oh, you're probably in, you probably have, your parents are rich or none of that. I come from very modest backgrounds, just the way many of you are from as well. And I was able to make use of bank loans to get to finish my engineering degree in Kongu Engineering College. And I used bank loans to come to the US. And I used my research ability to pay for those bank loans back and everything. So where there is a will, there is a way. You can always find a way to make it work, irrespective of where you come from. The third thing is that, like you, I had the same pressures. My dad was getting old. I have a younger brother. My mom was a homemaker. And I wanted to help my dad. He was traveling all around the country at that point of time, all around the state for his business. And for me, I felt really bad. I said, I finished my bachelor's and I should go work so that I can support my family. But my mom and dad said, well, don't worry about it. It's only 2 more years. So why don't you go finish your master's, because that's where your heart is. And once I went to start my master's, I realized, PhD is really where my passion is. So I went on to finish my PhD. But my parents said, at that point, they said, it's okay. So one takeaway from that is think long term, right? I can tell you, if I had taken my software job at the end of 4 years, I don't think I would have made my parents as happy as they are right now. So please think long term. Don't be pressured into short term, things here and there. Things will always work out. So have the faith. Another thing that people might think also is, oh yeah, so you had really good mentors. And I'll tell you this too. My parents, they had not finished their college. They had not finished their high school. When I finished my 8th grade, my dad told me, son, you are the most learned in our entire family, in our entire generation. And that was the truth. So when I finished 8th grade, I was the most studied person in my family, in my generation. So then I looked to inspiration from the teachers, from my friends and other mentors that I had at that time to say, could you please help me advise? And I would like to learn a little bit more. Could you please tell me what steps I can take? So please feel free to reach out to people. And like I said, if you think you're not getting good advice, the problem is that you have not reached out to the right person. So please make sure to keep an open mind about where to find the right person and ask for advice. So I would say just look around, and you have a whole family of people around. Look to them. Your teachers are your well-wishers. Look to them as mentors. Again, with the choice of field too, right? Like when I graduated in 2008, everybody wanted IT jobs, information technology, software jobs. Now, who was selected for information technology jobs, right? If you finished civil engineering, you got an IT job. If you finished mechanical engineering, you got an IT job. If you finished electrical engineering, you got an IT job. If you finished computer science engineering, you got an IT job. If you finished information technology, you got an IT job. But there is one thing that only electrical engineering students can do, things like power systems, power electronics. And if you broaden the scope a little bit, if you're thinking about energy, if you're thinking about microgrids, if you're thinking about distribution system, you're thinking about reliability, blackout, all of these things that only electrical engineers can do. A civil engineer cannot come and do this particular task. You cannot have a computer science engineer come and do these things. So play to your strengths. You spent 4 years trying to get to a place, go through a lot of difficulty in trying to finish your courses. And it is a very special course. I didn't understand the value of electrical engineering until I came to the US. Of course, in Tamil Nadu, I remember in 2004 when I picked EEE, my choice was purely based on what did the first top-ranking person in the state chose in state counseling. That person had chosen ECE, and the second person has chosen computer science. I chose EEE because I didn't have ECE or I didn't get computer science. But my interest has always been with electrical engineering and power systems. So when I came to the US, in the US, there is no department called ECE or computer science or IT or anything. The only department that you'll have is electrical and computer engineering. Mind you, it's not communications, it's not instrumentation, it's not controls. It is electrical engineering. Like Professor Balaswamy sir mentioned, electrical engineering is the oldest of the departments. If you specialize in electrical engineering, from that point on, you can go to any other field that you would like, electronics, communications, controls, instrumentation. They all come from electrical engineering. So please bear in mind that you're preparing for the best future you can with all your options open. It is really important that you know all of these options. One more thing I would say is, sometimes when I think about power systems job, if I tell you like, energy field has a very good future, what would you think? You would think something like working in maybe the Tamil Nadu Electricity Board, or you will think being a service engineer or a field engineer. But those are jobs that we know. But when it comes to the challenges that this country faces, the challenge is not going to be addressed by the jobs that we currently have. In fact, when I studied, it's called future pedagogy. This is one of a focus areas at Virginia Tech when I was finishing up my PhD. One of the things that they said was almost 80. We are preparing students for jobs that do not exist at this point of time. So maybe even 5 years ago, if somebody told me machine learning in power systems, people would laugh at you, because people could never imagine, why would you use machine learning for power systems? We're doing great the way we are. But there are challenges in power systems that means that you need people from machine learning, you need people from artificial intelligence, you need people from cybersecurity, you need people from information technology, and so on. But for all of these people, they need to know how the grid works. They need to know how the physics of the electric grid works. And that's what the electrical engineer is going to bring to the table. Meaning, you can always substitute so many of these other requirements when you're trying to solve energy problems. But electrical engineers are the key to solving a lot of these challenges. So you're going to be this centerpiece around which you're going to have all of these people working with you to solve energy problems. And so don't be constrained by what you know as electrical engineering jobs. Think beyond. Forget about what you know in terms of the jobs that are already there. Think about the challenges that the countries are facing, about which I'll talk a little bit more during the guest lecture. But the idea is for you to think beyond what you know. So to summarize, again, you don't have to do higher studies. You don't have to come here for masters to do any of that. You can get into solving a lot of these just by opening up your mind, learning a little bit more, finding good mentors, and looking for resources other than just your textbooks to identify what challenges you want to solve. With that, I would like to wrap up my inaugural address. I would just like to summarize what I said. First is be focused on your goals. Second is learning to learn. I think that's an excellent saying. I'm making a note of it for my own reference. Where there is a will, there is always a way. Think long term. Look for the family around you right now, the family that you made, and use your strengths as an electrical engineer and make sure that you can prepare for jobs that are even yet to be invented. And for that, curiosity is the key. With that, I would like to thank everybody for this opportunity again. And I look forward to the guest lecture that's to come right after this. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. And it gives us an immense pleasure to hear from your wishing, sir.
A small request for all the faculty members, dignitaries, and students. Please turn on your videos. So let us take a moment to take a photograph. Thank you.
Devasena, is it okay?
Yes, ma'am. They are capturing the photographs. Please wait for a while.
Okay. It's okay, ma'am. Completed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
A moment of gratitude makes a difference in the attitude. Let me call upon Ms. S.M. Devasena, Treasurer of EEE Association, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Respected and most distinguished chief guest of the day, respected correspondent and principal, our beloved HOD, honorable professors, and my dear friends, a warm and graceful morning to one and all. I deem it a great honor to propose the vote of thanks to all who have helped us in making this inaugural a very resounding success. First of all, I would like to give my hearty vote of thanks to our chief guest, Dr. Santosh Ambamurthy Veda, Group Manager, Grid Automation and Controls, Senior Researcher, Energy Systems Control, Erode, USA, for gracing today's inaugural. Thank you, sir, for your interesting thought and provoking address. I would like to thank our correspondent, P. Sachidanandan, sir, and also I would like to express our deep gratitude to our principal, Dr. V. Balaswamy, sir, for making this inaugural a great success. I would also thank our beloved HOD ma'am, Dr. R. Meenakumari ma'am, for her guidance and moral support. I'm happy to express a sincere thanks to our staff coordinators who has made this inaugural a grand success through their motivation and dedication. Our deep sense of thanks to all our faculty members for being a part of this function. At last, I thank the wonderful students who have turned up in such a great numbers, and also thank you so much for your cooperation. Once again, I thank you all for your cordial cooperation. Finally, I will leave you with an inspiring quote. All your dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them. Thank you all.
Thank you, Devasena, for your addressal and thanking.
I request Ms. Shalini to introduce our chief guest and let us start with our guest lecture.
A warm welcome is never incomplete without the warm words. Here I take an immense pleasure and ecstasy in introducing the chief guest, who is one of the members of our EEE family, Dr. Santosh Ambamurthy Veda, Group Manager and Senior Researcher at the NRL USA. Our chief guest is the alumni of our college at the Virginia Tech USA, and also as the research and development intern, and became the research engineer at the Electric Power System Lab of the General Electric Global Research Careers. The lead researcher in the power systems control at the NREL for the 2 years. At present, manager in the grid automation and control, and a senior researcher in the energy storage system control at the NREL USA. He has also been a principal investigator for the various funded projects and also proposed various grants. More than 20 papers and projects, and filed 5 patents. The President Award from NREL in the year 2018 and Technical Achievement Award for the measurements-based static load in identification in the year 2017, and entry of IEEE Denver section for the year 2017 to 2019. Every thought you produce, anything you say, and any action you do, it bears a signature. With this quote, I request the guest of the honor to take over the session.
Thank you very much
Preeti?
for the introduction.
Santosh, 1 minute. No, correspondent, sir. Sir, we are about to start the guest lecture. If you want to leave, you can leave, sir. Very thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, your mic is muted, sir. You can unmute your mic and.
Thank you, Anandal. Wish you all
Thank
the
you,
best.
sir. Thank
Wish you all the
you.
best.
Thank you very much for coming and gracing the function, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Santosh, the session handed over to you. You can deliver your lecture. Thank you.
Santosh, your mic is muted.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm sorry. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Excellent.
We can see a
Thank you very much
screen.
for confirming.
Thank you, Santosh.
Okay, fantastic. So, absolutely. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for the introduction, and again, thank you very much for for inviting me for the inaugural, being the chief guest for the inaugural as well as for the guest lecture. Like I said before, this is an honor that's unparalleled, and like I told you, my parents are proud about this particular event than anything else that I've done in my life, and I really appreciate all of us for reaching out, Maheshwari ma'am for setting this up, and Meena Kumari madam for organizing this up also. I would like to congratulate all the new team members, the office bearers, for taking over as the EEE association. Please know that what you're doing here as part of the association is very important yourself, because it shows you that you are in leadership positions. It's also very beneficial for everybody in the department to work with the development. So I really appreciate what you do. I've benefited from those when I was in college, and I'm glad that this tradition is being carried on. I would like to start a little bit about, thank you for the great introduction, but I do want to hit on just a few more things just in my introduction, just so I can provide a little bit more context as well. Like I was introduced before, I was at Kongu Engineering College finishing my bachelor's in EEE from 2004 to 2008. And from 2008 to 2012, I was at Virginia Tech finishing my master's and my PhD. And on top of it, I also was almost 90% completed with a master's in nuclear engineering. But since I had a job, I had to stop pursuing. Instead, I got a graduate certificate in nuclear engineering and also future professorate. Now, after finishing my PhD, I went to GE to work for the Corporate Research Center. To give you an example, it's 2,500 people working on the latest technology that the largest company in the world has to offer. We worked on everything, including electrification of aircraft, mining, transportation, ships. I worked on energy storage technologies. I worked on renewables. I worked on microgrids. I worked on transmission and distribution reliability, and so on. And that was private sector. Now I currently work in NREL, which is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. I have another slide on what NREL is. But when I joined here in 2016, I was a lead engineer, and then I got promoted to a senior engineer, and then I'm a principal researcher. I also got promoted to be a group manager. At this point, I'm managing 62 of them. Almost all of them have a PhD. And my group as a large, we focus on microgrids and grid modernization, integration of PV systems, electric vehicles, electrolyzers, and fuel cells. My group alone is a business volume of about $6 million per year. So that's like saying there is 6 million just within my group with 16 to 20 people. There is a business volume of $6 million worth of research that's happening every year. Now, you may look at it and say, oh, this is all great. I mean, you had a good plan. I'll tell you, like, none of that is true. When I was in 2008, I didn't know what I was going to do. I came to the US, I went to a different university, not to Virginia Tech. And I didn't like the university because I wanted to pursue power systems. So I called Meena Kumari madam and Sheila madam and said, madam, could you please give me a recommendation letter? That way I can apply for Virginia Tech. And Meena Kumari madam would come into office early that day if I asked for that request. So I'll send her an email, but about 11, 12 o'clock in midnight, I'll send her a message. And by the time I woke up, which would be 7 p.m. for me, 7 a.m. for me, Meena Kumari madam would have got into the office. She would do this as the first thing to write my recommendation letters. And if not for that support from Meena Kumari madam and Sheila madam, I will not be where I am here. And I don't think I've told this to Meena Kumari madam either. When I saw her pursuing her PhD in power systems, that was my motivation to do this as well. Sheila Madam as well. She was working on her PhD at that point. She was my professor for a couple of power systems based courses. And Senthilnathan sir, Raghupati sir, Albert sir, Sivachitra Madam, they're all really great people that motivated me and inspired me to pursue all of these. So again, like I said, you could look at the slide here and say, oh, he's a great person, but you don't see the work that went into the contribution from my professors, which was very key in me trying to get here. And I think that was a motivation for me to come talk to you as well. In it that there are important things to be done in the core area, and the problems are not solved by any stretch of imagination. We need a lot of bright and talented minds like you are to make sure that we continue pursuing these problems so that way we have solutions. I do want to give a quick highlight about NREL. Like I mentioned, this is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. So this is one of the 17 U.S. government federal national laboratories. So this is funded by the Department of Energy under the United States federal government. Now, these national laboratories are considered a national treasure in the U.S. NREL is the only one that's dedicated for renewable energy research. But the atomic bomb, the hydrogen bomb, nuclear reactors, the internet, all of these technologies were born in the National Research Consortium. So, that's the impact of work that's being done. And of course, joining NREL, it's a very competitive field. The company as a whole has 570 patents issued. Of course, the applied patents are 10 times or more than the actual. And as a company as a whole, we do close to $500 million of business per year, which means it's $500 million of research work per year. We have close to more than 2,500 researchers, and these researchers come from over 70 countries working in this one place and solving the problems. Of course, the campus area is spread over 600 acres, which is, as you know, it's a large area. Of course, we work in everything under the sun when it comes to renewable energy. We work on bioenergy. We discover new bacteria, new algae that you can use for converting waste into energy. We work on building technologies, chemistry and nanoscience, computational science, analysis, energy storage, grid modernization, geothermal, hydrogen, fuel cells, solar material science, transportation, water, and wind. Of course, this is only a very small subset of the technical areas that we work in. We focus on a very broad area of any technology that works that focuses on renewable energy. And like I said, there are challenges that are abound in each of these different areas. And we've been in existence for more than 40 years. Trying to solve is going to take many more number of tens and, I would say even like maybe another 40 years to even get to solving some of these challenges. So the area that I would like to present to you today is full of these challenges, and we need people to solve these challenges. But before I go into any of the details, right, let me start with this very abstract concept. It's called ikigai. It's a Japanese term. It simply means a reason for being. Now, there was a research that was conducted where they said, where do people with the longest, where do people who live the longest? So they found this little island in Japan this region called Okinawa. And they said, man, the people there live up to 120 years of age. Some of the oldest people that are alive live in this island. So it's not 1 or 2%, it's the entire island and the neighborhood that has, the people. And they said, oh, so why do people live that way? So it is a lifestyle. So what it means is answering 4 questions for yourself. What does the world need? What can you be paid for? What are you good at? And what do you love? The intersection of these 4 constitutes the reason for being. Now, we can spread this out a little bit, right? So I have these 4 circles, the Venn diagrams. So what you love is on the top. What can you be paid for? That's the money. That's on the bottom. What the world needs is on the right, and what you're good at is on the very left. Like I mentioned, when all these 4 intersect, that is the ikigai, meaning that is the reason for being. And that's what makes people live to that long years. Now, all of us focus on one or the other. A lot of us are driven by, okay, I need to make sure I get a well-paid job. So that's at the very bottom. What can you get paid for? then you're not going to be able to sustain the job. You would always feel that there is a sense of uncertainty. You think that you might lose your job anytime. Similarly, let's say that you get paid for something, but the world also needs it. It makes for a really good vocation. Meaning, it's a nice job where the world needs it and you get paid for it. Great. But what if you don't like it? And what if you're not good at it? It's going to create a sense of complacency, and there's no excitement in the work that you do. Say that you're really good at something, and then you're doing what you love. So that is passion. It can create this delight and fullness, but you don't have the money because you're not being paid for it. So really, the question comes down to, answering these four. And oh yeah, what the world needs, that's always a question. What can I be paid for? That's another bigger question. That's all we all end up asking. But I'll tell you this, I can answer the first two questions over the course of this presentation over the next 20, 30 minutes, right? But what you're good at is something that you have to work for a long time. That you're in a good place for it, and that you have the right skills being imparted, you have good mentors. And that's where you being in EEE and Kongu Engineering College helps. The last question, what do you love? That is a question that nobody else can answer for you. That is something that you have to answer for yourself. Your parents might say, I would like you to become an IAS officer. That might say, I want you to be an IPS officer. Your teachers might say, I want you to be a professor. Or your friends might say this, or somebody might say that. Doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, it really comes down to what it is that you really love. And trust me, a lot of the times, people spend all their life where they answer even the top three questions. And when you don't get the fourth question right, you don't have that fullness. Bottom, it says you're comfortable, but then there's a feeling of emptiness that you really haven't done much of anything. There was this article that since I've been managing 16 people, these are some things that I usually bring up for discussions with them. There is another article that they said, there are people that are about to pass away, like they're at the very last minutes of their lives. And they asked them, what is the biggest regret you have? And every one of them said, it's pursuing things that they did not really like just because somebody else asked them to. So the question is, make sure that you have the fourth question in mind. And of course, you don't know what you like unless you've tried a lot of things, right? So, be curious. You don't know if you don't know that you don't like higher studies unless you've tried it. So I would say, always give these things a try so you know what is it that you really like. So the next part of the presentation is going to focus on what does the world need and what can you get paid for. And the last two questions, like I said, the third question is really, it is with you right now. You are in an environment that provides you with all those things you need to answer, number three. And number four is something that's a personal journey. That is something you have to answer for yourself. And that usually takes many years, and that's okay. So long as you have the right tools, so long as you're on the right path. This is a picture that I took from one of the study, and you see the gentleman's shirt as USAID. It is the United States Alliance for International Development, or Association, something for International Development. The way this works is, like I said, NREL is one of the premier laboratories working on renewable energy research in the US. We get a lot of funding from USAID for us to work with countries from around the world. It's very similar to how with mobile phones, there are countries in Africa that are not laying telephone lines because they said, let's skip a technology generation. That way they can skip directly to mobile phones. So they're saving a lot of money in trying to avoid doing what we did, which is install copper lines, install telephone exchanges, and then replace. Nobody uses them anymore. Now it's all back to just cell phones. So they just skip that entire technology. So we are trying to help a lot of developing countries and underdeveloped countries to leapfrog. That way they don't go through coal and other polluting energy resources before they switch to renewables. So we work with them closely so that way we can work with them and say, this is how we go to the next stage without going through polluting fossil fuels. That's a very big part of my work. I have some slides focused on that as well, but more as we come. Now, I want to lay out the problem for you. What I have right here is the per capita GDP. And of course, they're organized from lowest at the very bottom to the highest in the top. what you might see is actually a certain range of development, right? So we have sub-Saharan Africa, which is one of the least developed countries in the world, region in the world, and then we have South Asia, which includes India. So it's not the only. So I just selected a few just to illustrate the point, and there are many more in between. Of course, we have India at 805 kilowatt hour energy use, and then North America, which includes U.S., Canada, and Mexico, it's at 13,000. Singapore, which is a very well-developed country too, has 10 times more energy consumption, like electricity per capita consumption, than a country like India. What this means really is that, if you looked at the growth of all of these countries, which is what is here, you'll see that as we increase the per capita GDP, as the countries get richer, there is an energy use increase also. So meaning, it's not a question of if, it is really a question of when. India will be in that high range, it could be a decade, it could be 20 years, that's up for debate, and that's something that it's not the focus here. But the point is, we can expect that when we get to being a developed country, we are going to be consuming 10 times more energy than we do right now. And like I told you, like all the trajectories point to exactly that. That as a country continues to grow, as a country continues to become richer, they consume a lot more energy. You can flip that and say, well, is it the energy use that's driving the development? Which also makes sense. For instance, in my house, I have a dishwasher. I load all the, we load all the plates and it takes care of it. Now, if you're not using the dishwasher, then that's 2 hours of your time that you have to spend, and that's not productive, because if a machine can do it with energy and water, why would we spend human capital, right? Similarly, let's say that, let's think about the drought that we had 2 years ago in Chennai. If you had enough energy where energy was not a concern at all, you could desalinate a lot of water, and you could use the desalinated water to feed Chennai instead of trying to take water from all over the state. You can think of things like that for every single thing. In the US, we have programs where they use energy to alleviate poverty. So they deploy solar panels on the rooftops for free, so that way some of the low-income communities don't have to pay that cost of energy. That's an energy saving for them. And that also helps with greening the grid. So energy use is very fundamental to who we are as a country. It's fundamental to who we are as humanity. And I truly believe that energy is the silver bullet that can solve a lot of our challenge. But that means energy has to come down, the cost of energy has to come down to be really, really low. And that's where it's important to also look at the quality of energy, right? So this is called a Sankey diagram. I understand this is a very busy chart right here, but please bear with me. On the very left is the inputs to the economy. So you have oil production, you have coal production, you have gas, you have bio-waste, you have electricity, imports, you have other sources, nuclear, hydro. On the very right is how is it being consumed. You have industry at the very top, you have transportation, you have other, you have non-energy uses. What I would like you to focus on is this thing right here. So this is power station. So this is all the energy that we have as an input. Like we take coal, we take hydro, we take nuclear, all of that comes into this power station. And that's what gets consumed at the very end as electricity. Now, imagine our energy is growing 10 times, right? So each of these is going to grow 10 times. Now, does anyone see renewable energy in here? Does anyone see solar? Do you see, well, there's hydro and nuclear, which are clean energy sources, of course. But you don't see solar or wind, and this was in 2017. So what this really shows is that solar and wind are free resources. Of course, there's a lot of capital cost, but the cost is coming down very drastically thanks to improvement in power electronics. Now we are focusing on how do we interconnect these resources into the grid without issues. And that challenge needs to be solved as well. And that's where we need power system engineers. Now, we don't have wind or solar represented here because there's such a tiny gap. Imagine that we increase the energy use by 10 times, meaning each of these bars increases by 10 times. but they're all from polluting sources like coal and oil, renewable energy. Imagine the pollution that we'll have. Imagine the quality of air. Imagine how much our resources would be degraded. Imagine how many forests we'll lose if we were to continue on the path where we are, or at least where we were in 2017 into the future. So that's where the question comes of how do we make sure our energy use is sustainable? How do we make sure that our growth path is sustainable? That is something that we have to think way ahead of time before it becomes a problem later in the future. So that is the problem statement, that some of the challenges that we have with energy in India really, where we don't have enough renewable energy contributing to a significant portion of what we could be using. A couple of other trends that we have seen late in the industry is you see the transportation. Again, India is a country where we do use a lot of public transportation, but that is changing very rapidly. When we see that when the per capita income grows, the number of electric vehicles, or number of cars also grow, like personal cars, vans, what have you, like they all grow. Meaning the transportation segment is also on the cusp of experiencing a very large growth. Again, imagine all our cities getting clogged with transportation, and imagine the pollution that we're expected to see and the air quality degradation in our cities. That's where electrification of transportation and greater use of electricity in the industry, they are all going to play a very major role in the future in order for us to become a developed country. So these are charts that I would like to illustrate the challenge that we face in India, right? Like I mentioned, we have done this study through the through the help from USAID in trying to address how much renewable energy can we actually bring into the grid. And we learned you can bring in 175 gigawatts. And this includes PV and wind, both at the distribution system, like behind the meter, as well as at the bulk grid. But a lot needs to be done, though, because at this point of time, we see a lot of curtailment happening in Tamil Nadu when it comes to the wind resources. And if we keep adding wind without an improvement to the grid operations, without modernizing the grid, just adding more and more renewable energy, because we're going to keep curtailing them, meaning we're never going to make use of all of that for our energy needs. We'll still continue to run a lot of coal plants. We'll still continue to run a lot of oil plants. We'll continue to import a lot of oil, and that puts the national security at jeopardy. So, these are all interconnected problems. And the solution to all of this is modernizing our grid. And that's where we need a lot of engineers. We need a lot of focus in the core electrical engineering areas. And like I mentioned before, these are problems that only power systems engineers can solve, only electrical engineers can solve. You can have support from software, IT, cybersecurity, power electronics, from electronics folks and so on. But so the core has to be solved from the energy sector. And this is one of the outcomes from the study. What we are showing is in 2022, how will this look like? On the very first column is normal operations. And like I mentioned, we said 170 gigawatts of renewable energy, of which 100 gigawatts is going to be solar, 60 gigawatts is wind, and 10 gigawatts is smaller, other like geothermal and so on, other. But what is interesting is that if we kept it the way it is, then we see that there is going to be a 1.5% curtailment, and the production cost is almost 230 lakh crores. That is the cost of energy production on an annual basis. Now, not much, just coordinating and scheduling. And you would be surprised how much more work needs to be done in our grids to make sure that it works the way it's supposed to, like in order to modernize the grid. Just by coordinating, we can save close to 3% annually, and we can reduce the curtailment a little bit. If we start coordinating at a national level, then we can save up to 3.5% of costs, and we can reduce the renewable curtailment to just less than 1%. Now, of course, a number, but multiply that 3.5% on 230 lakh crore. That is the amount of money that we can save just by coordinating. I'm not saying I'm not talking about advanced technologies. I'm not talking about any other technologies. It's merely just coordinating the schedules. Now, the key part to all of this is that coal plant flexibility. If we assume that the coal plants are base loads, that they cannot be redispatched, that you cannot back them out, then it means that the cost increases significantly, and it keeps increasing as there is less and less flexibility of coal plants. So it's not just about new technology for wind and solar, but it's new technology for integrating and operating the grid with these new technologies. It's also about electrifying the end use, like electric vehicles, fuel cells, and so on. But it's also about how do we make sure that the existing assets do not become idle? How do we make sure that we still continue to use the existing assets to make sure that they continue generating? So there is a lot of technology. So we need to revisit old technologies for the new future. We have to revisit new technologies and develop new technologies to address some of these. We also need to go back to looking at the distribution system and seeing what needs to be done at that level to help with this, with the new modern grid. The study continues where they looked at 5 different states. They selected the states with the highest renewable energy contribution. And there are some more interesting studies as well where we said how much renewable energy can be deployed, how much import needs to be done, how much export needs to be done, and where these plants would potentially be deployed, and things like that. So these are all things that help with planning the grid. One thing I do want to say is all of these tools are at NREL. We develop them. But the point is we cannot continue supporting them from NREL all the time. We need somebody in India being able to capable of taking these models, working with these models, and solving these challenges at the country level more. So we need to develop that indigenous capability. And that is very much lacking in our country as a whole. And like I said, these are opportunities where you can step in and try to, these are things that the world needs. India, the country as a whole needs very much. But also that these are jobs that do pay you pretty significantly well, because these are all engineering jobs. And there is significant cost savings from all of them. And there is value in the private sector to address some of these challenges. So yes, it's really, energy is a place where you can get to the answering question. So beyond the challenges that I addressed for India, there are these issues that we see on a global scale. How do we bring in more power electronics-based variable renewable energy and integrate them with the grid? How do we use communications? How do we use controls? How do we use data information? So that's what is smart grids, right? And how do we address interoperability and cybersecurity issues? Now we are looking at energy storage at the distribution level. We're looking at electric vehicles. We're looking at load flexibility. How do we take advantage of all of them in operating the grid? And in general, the grid itself is becoming more distributed. There used to be a time when India still has a lot of centralized grid. But it's only a matter of time before we start seeing solar panels come up on rooftops on homes, and before we see that the controls that we have is inadequate for that future. This is a picture from a photo from one of the projects that I led. This particular capability is a 3D visualization capability. And it's right now showing the simulations from a high-performance computing, a supercomputer. NREL has the fastest supercomputer in the world that's dedicated purely for renewable energy research. And this is one of the simulations from one of our studies. And like I said, these are challenges that we are still trying to get a grasp of, to define what the problem is. We haven't gotten to solving them. And we need people of all of these core areas to help solve these challenges. So how do we prepare to get there, right? Like I'm necessarily specialized, but if you choose to, you don't necessarily have to go the path of power systems and electrical engineering all the way. Like I mentioned, the electrical engineering focus area is the most key component to it. But from that point on, from where you are right now, you can be a power systems engineer, you can be a power electronics engineer, or you could choose to go public administration, where we still need to make sure that the policies at the government level are in line with what is needed by the industry, what is needed to enable this future. And we can also think of economics, where there are questions to be solved about the economics about the entire power grid, like, what is the cost benefit? How do we make sure we meet the minimum cost? We meet the requirements with minimum cost. What are the microeconomic risks and so on? And, again, you can go back to electrical engineering, but focus on control systems, because we need newer control architecture that reimagines the grid. So these are what I would like you to focus on is the diversity of where you can go from here. So the sky is truly the limit when you're thinking of what skills do I need to solve these problems? Because these are existential crises that the country is facing, that the world is facing. And no matter which of these you pick or whichever I'm sure there is a way for you to leverage all of that to help in solving this problem. But that alone is not enough, right? Like Professor Baluswamy sir mentioned during the inaugural address, the attitude of learning, like learning to learn, I think that is very important. When you pass an exam, we generally have this mindset that, oh, I've got 80%, I've got 85%, that's good enough. No, I think there is a little learning that needs to happen beyond what's in the textbooks, which means you need to be curious to ask the right questions, reach out to people, reach out to your professors like Meena Kumari madam or Sindilnathan sir and ask them questions, detailed questions. Take part in courses that they offer in addition to your regular classes. Study for prepare for exams like GATE and everything. Even if you don't get through, you would have learned a lot more than what you would. So, that's exactly the idea. And in this world of internet where you have knowledge that's freely available on the internet, there is no reason for you to hold back. And the key is you need to make sure that you're looking for the right things and you're verifying your sources so you're not, going away with false information. One thing I always like to stress is knowledge versus information versus data. I think this is very important, right? So when you search online, you can find a lot of information, you can find a lot of data, but that doesn't mean that you have the knowledge to solve a problem. It also means you don't even have the knowledge to even understand what the problem is. So that comes with practice, that comes with qualifications, and that's where your degree here helps you get there. But make sure that you apply the information and data on the tools in order for you to build up your knowledge, which can then help you address the problems and so on. I also want to share my recipe. I call this a recipe and not a template because this worked for me. It may not work for everybody, but but you can pick and choose what you want to add. But I think there is something that you can certainly add to. It's called The 7 Habits. It's a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I know this is a little complicated, but for now, let's just focus on the habits, right? The first habit in the very corner on the left is be proactive. The second habit is begin with the end in mind. The third habit is put first things first. Fourth, win-win. Fifth is seek first to understand and then to be understood. Sixth is synergize, and seventh is sharpen the saw. So these are 7 habits that build from the very basic of who you are as a person, being proactive, starting with where you want to go before you even decide what you're doing right now. And then putting first things first, that is prioritizing. And, that's how you build your habit. And again, as a habit, it means that it's something that you do on a very regular basis, meaning you should be conscious about doing it the first time. And then you should continue doing it the same way. That way it becomes a habit. And you need to be able to continue doing this on a regular basis for you to get to a point where you can say, you know what, I've mastered all 7 habits. And you will see that as you get further and further, you will see that you grow further in your success in your career as well. And that I've observed in a lot of people that report to me, I've seen that I look up to. But I highly recommend this book. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It is one of the best books I've read. That's what all of my mentors and everybody that I speak to say as well. I am a huge fan of yoga and meditation as well. It's interesting because when we think of meditation or yoga, we think of it as it's for my personal good. To it. But in the US, when people do yoga meditation, they usually say, there's my happiness, but there is also the ability for the meditation to help a greater good. There's more on it later. And I know that Sivachitra madam used to teach yoga. I'm not sure if she has the time to do it still. But please reach out to people like that to help you learn a little bit of some of these techniques, and it really helps. Again, this is one of those things that doesn't make an impact tomorrow, but this is going to make an impact down the road, and you'll be thankful for that. Exercise, this is something that we always disregard, right? That, oh, exercise, I don't have time for it. I need to read a book. I need to prepare for an exam. But at the end of the day, you do want to be well-rounded. You don't want you want to be able to have all of these in order for you to get there. So that's another important component as well. The family and friends. I think this is a very understated component. Like I said, helped me with advice on what higher studies I should pursue. That's where I looked up to my teachers for support and help. But I could learn from my mom and dad the value of hard work, the value of integrity, the value of being honest. So, look to your family for what you can learn, and for everything else, seek out a family that will help you. Similar is the case for friends as well. You need not have 5 friends and say, these are the only 5 friends I'll ever talk to. That's not the idea of friendship at all. It really is trying to help, being able to help each other. And by that, it means that you could have different circle of friends. You could have a circle of friends that you could work with for preparing for higher studies. You can have another circle of friends that you go with for maybe watching a movie. You could have another circle of friends that you use for studying for exams. You can have another circle of friends that you share some common interests with. So you don't have just one circle of 5 fixed friends that you use for everything. But that's where friends and family can be a force multiplier in helping you, providing you with inspiration and motivation when you need it the most. Again, when I say friends, you need not have 50 friends, right? You need 5 friends that you can say, okay, these are the people I'm going to depend on. And the friend circle changes with time. That is okay. You'll make new friends. That's okay. Sometimes the old friends you may lose touch with them. That is okay as well. But remember, they're still your friends. You can always reach out to them, which is what I do even to this day, where I reach out to people that I need at any point of time. That doesn't mean that I'm using them. That doesn't mean that I'm neglecting them. That's the way the life is. But like I said, leverage all of these. Make sure that you're grateful to your friends and your family for all the support they have. With relationships in general, you have ups and downs. But don't let those downs, don't define a relationship by the down moment that you have had. Look for the times that they have helped you and use that to help cement those relationships. And last but not the least, mentors. I cannot stress this enough. Where I would say, you need a mentor. And they would go find one person and say, he's my mentor or she's my mentor. But that is not enough. A mentor is supposed to be a coach. It's supposed to be, he or she is supposed to be a sounding board. He or she is supposed to be your guide. And any of these different roles, which means that you need to find what is it that you need advice for, and you need to reach out to the right person with the right experience to be your mentor. You need not have just one mentor. You can think of, like, depending on what your specific need is, you can have as many mentors for as many of these things as you need. This is something that I did not used to do when I was younger, and I think that's probably a cultural thing too, where reaching out to somebody for help is typically considered to be not a good thing. It's a weakness. Throw all of those things away. Reach out to your teachers, and your teachers and your professors are not just people that teach you in class. Look to them as mentors that you can learn from. To them, they would not know what is it that you need. So make sure that you communicate with your mentors and let them know what your needs are. Let them know what is it that you would need help and advice with, and follow through and communicate. And that's how you build a circle. That's how you become successful later. If nothing else, I would like you to walk away with this one thought at the end of it. It says the future belongs to the curious, the one who are not afraid to try it, explore it, poke at it, question it, and turn it inside out. I cannot stress enough how important this is. We come up with something, we, creative solutions do happen only when you have curiosity, when you have the curiosity, and make sure that you nurture this curiosity. That's going to be your key element that could drive a lot of your career choices. So please make sure to nurture it as well. This is generally an advice to, I think, our younger faculty members too. First, if you speak to Sendilnaran sir and Sivachitra madam and Meena Kumari madam, they are where they are because they are very good at nurturing the curiosity in students. Never have I been turned down with 1,000 questions I used to ask my teachers. And when I ask them to be my advisor for a project, they are more than willing to do it. But that the younger faculty might want to remind yourself to that. There is teaching, but there is the art of keeping students curious. And I think that's an important thing. This is important for both from a student perspective as well as from a faculty perspective. So with that, I will wrap up my speech, and please let me know if there are any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions have been posted by students. Let me post in chat box and please look into it, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I see in the chat window there is a question from Sneka. Is pursuing higher studies have a better future than a job after undergraduation? I would say yes and no. So I don't want to say how pursuing higher studies is the only way to do it, but it definitely opens opportunities that you may not have if you just finished your undergraduate. I'll give you an example, right? You'll get into a job where somebody tells you what the specific scope of what you want to do. Whereas when you finish your master's and then go for a job, the problem for yourself, and you'll find other people that you can bring on the team to help solve the problem. Now, if you finish your PhD, you're at a stage where you can not only conceive a problem, but you can think of future, you can think of a broader big picture, you can think of how do I, what does the world need to be addressed? You can be a visionary. And so with each that you get additional skills, which means that you have a greater opportunity. So I wouldn't say they're the same, but they're different. It all really comes down to like what is it that you believe in your core that you want to pursue. One advice that I could even say is if you're ever thinking of higher studies, if you think there is even a slight possibility that you may be interested in pursuing more, I would say get on to it. Because if you give it time, you'll never go back to doing it. I know a lot of my junior people that I'm mentoring, that I used to mentor, that I'm still in touch with, and they tell me the same thing that, if I had done my master's at that point, I would have completed it. But now it seems like I can't even think of going back again. And I wish I finished my master's, I finished my PhD. So please, if you're ever thinking of higher studies, please go ahead and pursue it. But in terms of better future, right? Again, that's a very subjective question. The question itself is, what do you define as better future? Is it based on money? Is it something that you think that you want to pursue? Is it helping the country? Is it being in a big leadership position? Higher studies can help with all of it. Again, it depends on whether you have the interest. There's no point you enrolling in for master's and PhD, and if you're not able to finish it, I think that's a more difficult position to be in. Not sure if that answered your question, and we can always come back to it to see if that answered your question. I see another question from Jnanarathi. Opportunities related to power system. I cannot emphasize enough how much work needs to be done in the area of power systems. Like I mentioned briefly during the presentation, we are looking for integrated renewable energy, but that's the future. We still haven't solved our own current problems yet. We need to be able to dispatch assets in a more optimal way. We should be able to look for economic optimization, economic dispatch. As you know, the country is divided into 5 sub-regions, and only now we are starting to build transmission systems to link all of them, and we're not there yet, which means that in Tamil Nadu, whereas there's another generator in Bihar that's being shut down because there is not enough energy consumption, because we're limited by how much energy can be transmitted across these corridors. So, which is where it is almost a problem of like lack of capacity to transport power. And so there are a lot of these challenges that needs to be addressed. Efficiency, improving efficiency, in improving flexibility of the power grid. How do we prevent blackouts? I have a cousin who has his own business in Coimbatore, and he invested 2 lakhs rupees in trying to get a diesel generator as a backup for his business. Why did he have to spend 2 lakhs on it? And he doesn't have the money to hire people, but he spent it on diesel generators. The reason is power cuts, right? If there's a power cut, they have to throw out the entire raw material out because it completely loses the value at that point of time. So those are costs. Imagine like every small business spending 2 lakh rupees on. What if you could make sure that the power grid is more reliable? That way, the small business can focus on their business aspects. So instead of putting it into diesel generator, they could have hired more people, bring in more economic development, grow their business. But now they're unduly spending a lot of money on energy. Again, if you think of future opportunities, I would almost say, imagine that the energy is free. Imagine that the energy, you don't have to pay for energy costs at all. What are the things you could do? I think sky is the limit, right? Which is actually not too far away from where we are. We have infinite amount of energy coming from the sun, from the wind, but we're not able to harness any of it because of the limitations in technology. So those are always questions that need to be addressed. I adequately answered your question with a follow-up question if that's not answered. There's the question from Manigandan. What are the emerging topics in electrical engineering research? That is a great question. Of course, I have been from energy entire life after EEE, and so I'm biased towards energy. I think of electrical engineering to include a lot of other subtopics like power electronics, systems, machine learning for power systems, machine learning for energy. But you can also think of machines, like there are newer machines like polyphasic machines. There are applications where we look for high frequency power transfer. We're thinking about electric vehicles, about wireless charging for electric vehicles. So those are all some important topics as well. VLSI, as always, is a very hot field because there's a lot of innovation happening in the telecommunication space. There's 5G that we are considering right now, which means that it's going to make life so much easier. Right now I can talk to you through my cell phone, and I can do a video chat without having to worry about connecting to Wi-Fi. So that is the level of communication capability that we have come to. But there is more that needs to be done. Imagine us, like 60 of us on a call. What used to be a classroom is now a virtual environment. And I'm living in the US where it's 10:40 in the night, and we are still having this conversation. So the technology is helping make us do things that we have not even imagined. Again, those are all, I would think all of them are electrical engineering topics. And I would say there is a lot of innovation that still needs to be done. The second thing I would like to focus on also is, all of us have read the textbooks. You look for polyphasic machines and everything. You will see that a lot of these are imports from the Western world. Like these are all concepts and technologies that were developed in the US, in Europe. But the question always is, how do you take some of these technologies and adopt it for the Indian case? Are there some things that is very unique to India that is not addressed by some of these? That is a huge area that we have not looked at because we have not had adequate R&D opportunity, R&D funding in this space. That's something to consider as well. I don't know if you know the wet grinders and pumping machines. The borewell pumps. Those are all considered unique to the Coimbatore region because that's where they were developed. In fact, there is a GI tag it's called from United Nations. Needs that are very specific to Indian requirements that were developed. So think of things that we need to address something like that as well. Actually, on that point, we are working currently with the utilities in New Delhi and Mumbai. The challenge they have is electrified auto rickshaws. So they want to electrify all the auto rickshaws, but they don't know what is the impact it's going to create for the local grid. Is the local grid capable of supporting the electrified fleet of auto rickshaws? And how should you manage that also? So we are helping them with that. Again, that is a problem that's very unique to India, but I think there are a lot of these problems that need to be addressed, and that's where I think electrical engineering can generally help. There's a question from Vinod. What are the essential skills needed to be learned to enter into renewable sector as being electrical engineering? The essential skills, I think it really comes down to what you're learning in school right now. Like for instance, you're looking at machine design. You're looking at design of power system protection, AC machines, DC machines, special machines. You're looking at power electronics. The electrical circuits, electromagnetic theory. All of those teach you the basic, but you need to go one step further, right? That's exactly where you're not saying, well, I want to get 80% in this subject. That shouldn't be the focus. It really is, what is it that I can learn from here? And which of these can I apply it somewhere else? So that should be the focus, I think, the problem-solving focus. Another thing I can also suggest is, think of make sure that you're up to date with what's happening in the news. As you know, the current government in India is very focused on bringing a lot of renewable energy. And they're already seeing a lot of issues too, right? There are economics that play a big role. And there are some things that the current government has done that has made it easy to integrate renewables that we had not pursued until this time. So make sure you're aware of these challenges. And again, all of these are electrical engineering in nature. I would say keep your mind open, make sure that you're open to learning new things, and make sure that you're able to discuss, find people to discuss these with, and I think that's the key. There is a question from Maheshwari. What is the new technology in batteries for electric vehicles? That is a good question, because the battery technology, the chemistry itself is evolving constantly. We started, when I was in GE, we used to work on sodium metal halide. Of course, that was a very bad battery in hindsight. But there was a lot of innovation in Japan and China and the lithium-ion battery, which contributed to lithium-ion being the very prominent technology, chemistry technology. But with lithium-ion, there are different flavors. There is lithium-ion phosphate. There is lithium-ion manganese cobaltate. There is lithium-ion what have you, right? So there are a lot of different types of lithium-ion technologies. Each one it is to cater to a different need. Some are highly energetic, meaning they're not safe for, they could explode. And that's what we saw in some of the issues that we had with our personal electronics, right, where there were some explosions. That's because they had very high energy chemistries being used. Whereas in electric vehicles, they also tend to be lithium-ion, but they are a little lower energy because safety is of a bigger concern. But even with those batteries, we still haven't solved a lot of challenges. So right now, the batteries lose their charge. They're not as energy efficient. They also degrade over time. Over 5 years, they degrade a lot. And right now, you cannot use the vehicles for V2G, which is putting in power and taking power away for supporting the electric grid. Right now, we can do only what we call V1G, where you can change the rate of charging, and that's about it. When it comes to electric vehicles, it's a very interesting problem too, right? You can assume that you have this electric vehicle that you can charge and discharge, but you don't know if you're going to have the electric vehicle available, because that depends on the location. It depends on the users. Say, for instance, if I have a larger battery, I don't have to charge every day, which means I'm connecting my battery to the charger maybe once a week. Whereas if you had a smaller car, or if you travel longer, it means that you're connecting your vehicle to the grid more often, which provides the opportunity for doing some of these controls. So this is one technology where the user, the way it's used, the patterns, all of that is going to make a lot of difference. Again, this goes back to my point about this challenge being multidisciplinary, right? Where you have the grid, you have to supply energy to the fleet of electric vehicles, but you don't know where they're connecting, you don't know how much charge they need, you don't know how long they need to be charged for. You don't know any of these things, so that's why we need to focus on newer technologies to help update the way we do the grid. What are all the essential needs prepared to emerge in power system? Like I mentioned, in power systems, the energy storage, integration of electric vehicles, use of energy storage, HVDC systems, improving the reliability of the bulk grid, improving the efficiency of the distribution system, using distribution system for bulk grid services, improving the amount of renewable energy in the system, greening the grid, reducing the amount of polluting carbon, preventing, upgrading our existing coal plants to be able to meet those needs. If there is climate change, if other things happen, so how do we prepare our energy grids for that, right? Those are all like questions that need to be addressed. In which field, this is a question from Vinod Kumar, in which field will be more job opportunities for electrical engineers in the US? It's not just in the US, it's in India as well. We see a tremendous explosion of growth opportunities in renewable energy. Again, in the sectors of, when you think of renewable energy, you can think of research. You can think of testing new technologies, which is not research, but it is, it's a little next to it. And then you can think of, you need a whole bunch of project managers, you need a whole bunch of financial advisors to help advise on these projects. And then, of course, on top of it, you also need people to actually do the deployment of renewable energy systems, like be it rooftop, like you need to connect the inverters, make sure they all work. And so there is work that needs to be done all the way from the top with research and conception, all the way down to deploying these systems on the field, telemetry, measurements. So there is a whole lot of job openings that are in the US. Actually, I think renewable energy may be the largest sector for job growth in the US. And in India, it's only now catching up. And soon enough, you'll see that there's going to be a lot of requests for renewable energy, electrical engineers in that subspace. But on top of it, software, electronics, communications, they're always popular mainly because of this growth in 5G. There is a lot of growth in personal electronics. Now, I have cell phones, my work cell phone, my personal phone, and another phone. And I have two computers, my personal computer, my work computer. And I have three other, wearable devices. I have a GPS for my car. I have a GPS on my watch, a Fitbit tracker. So each person has, 10 to 20 power electronics, 10 to 20 power devices. And so there is this growth in power electronics and consumer electronic markets. That's always driving a lot of growth as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Like I said, if you're a power systems engineer, if you're an electrical engineer, you can go all the way from designing power electronic circuits for your battery for your watch, and you can go all the way to doing nuclear reactor or energizing the entire grid. So you have this entire sector that opens up. And like I mentioned, when I was working in GE, I worked on electrifying aircraft, electrifying ships, electrifying trains, electrifying coal mining, electrifying, what have you. Like everything is revolving around electrification, which means, think of what you see right now and think of yourself as, is there benefit in converting that energy to being from an electrical energy standpoint? If the answer is yes, and most likely the answer is yes, because it helps in improved efficiency, it helps in cleaner end-use consumption and so on. So, those are things that you might want to, there's an opportunity in that area. So I would say, keep your eyes open, like I said, curiosity. From Meena Kumari, madam, we want to get back to you from our department. How would you help us? Madam, this is a great question. I've always wanted to engage with the EEE department as a whole. If there's an opportunity for me to advise on any courses, if you would like my feedback on what I see here in these schools, provide you with that feedback. I can help you with mentoring students as well. Like if you're thinking of a project that needs some support, or if you'd like me to review some of the project ideas that you have, I would be very glad to do it as well. In fact, I would request you to tell me how I can help you. Like if you have a list of things that you have in your mind, and like I said, ma'am, you have the vision and the leadership to think beyond. And if you, from this process, if you think of anything, please let me know, and I'd be very glad to see how I can help support. One other thing I would also add is, so I did teach a couple of courses here in the US. And of course, with the students here, it's a very different mindset altogether. We start with, the problem-solving mindset for a lot of our courses. Of course, there is some learning, but the learning actually happens in people working on their assignments. So I would almost say, almost 10% of their score, final score for the course, would come from exams. The remaining 90% comes from homeworks and assignments and projects, and every single subject would have its own project. And there'll be some hands-on learning. And I'm not sure if there is a way to include it, the way that I know that we have some restrictions on how much we can change the syllabus or what we can add to the syllabus. But if there's anything I can do to help, I would be very glad to. I think I owe it to make sure that I contribute back where I can in helping with the department. So please let me know however I can help. Tell me your spirit behind your success. This is a question from Gokul and from Gokul. Gokul, really, it really comes down to, see, you don't know that you're successful until when you're doing it, right? It's almost like saying, let's say that you get on a bus and you're traveling in a bus. You don't know where you're headed. You don't know when the bus is going to stop. The bus keeps going on and on and on. And along the way, you see that you're hitting all the things that you want to see. So the real thing is like, if you ever decide to get off the bus, then that's all you're going to go, right? You're not going to go any further. But what keeps you in the bus? It really is, a passion, I think, like to learn, to keep learning. I think that's really the important thing. Like I said, I always approach everything from a perspective of like, what can I learn and what can I contribute? But the contribute is secondary. And when I change jobs, it usually is at a point when I think I've learned enough and there's not much I can learn from at this point of time. I think that learning is at the very base of everything I do. Of course, let's say that if I want to learn about hydrogen and fuel cells, I cannot learn about it until I contribute. And so, I need to write a project. I need to use a project to say, hey, I would like to propose a project in trying to learn more about hydrogen systems. This is what I think I can contribute. So it's almost give and take, right? You really want to know what is it that you can learn and what is it that you want to contribute. It really does come down to, some self-awareness as well. Like all of us have strengths. We want to make sure that we know what these strengths are and we play to them. You don't want to say, oh, I want to be that person. And you cannot push against who you are as a person in trying to be that person. So it really is trying to identify, where do you come from? What is it that drives you? And tapping into this energy to succeed. I mean, that's where you're going to find the energy from. If I came and tell you, Gokul, if I come to you and tell you, Gokul, you have to finish your master's in electrical engineering. Let's say that your heart is somewhere else. No matter how much I stress you, no matter how much you get stressed, it's not going to happen. So it really comes down to like, getting in touch with what you think your strengths are, where is it that your passions lie, but also a learning mentality to be able to take the feedback and learn from it. One thing I would also say is, all of us have the same opportunity, right? I would say every single one of you in that room had the same exact opportunity that I had when I was in KEC, in Kongu Engineering College from 2004 to 2008. Nothing has changed. You have COVID. We had our 2008 financial meltdown. You have some challenges. We had our own challenges as well. But I would say every single one of you has the same exact chance to have the same level of success that I did. And there's nothing. The only thing that's going to change that outcome is your own individual attitudes, your own individual perceptions. So I would say, always learn. Make sure that you learn. Go beyond your textbooks. And I think that's where the key is. How to model power system for studying damping of the system? That is a very good question. So modeling. So actually, that also reminds me. Thank you for the question, Fugaragan. Sorry, I hope I told your name right. So that's a very important question. The reason is that one of the capabilities that we lack is our ability to model a system. So what do we mean by model, right? We create a mathematical equivalent of a physical system. Once we have this mathematical equivalent, we can do a whole bunch of analysis to make sure that the system will perform in a different sets, right? So you have a model. And then you can design a control layer. And the control layer can send commands, and you can see how this physical system is going to react. And that's what the model does. Now, you can do the modeling for electric vehicles. You can do model for customer behavior, consumer behavior if you have an electric vehicle. You can do a model for grid behavior, what have you. But I think the ability to model just creates so much opportunities for you. In fact, in my particular department, we have close to 120 research engineers, of which 20 of them report to me. But a good amount, of almost 60, half of my group, half of my department focuses on modeling, and there are still challenges to be solved. So that is the importance of modeling, and I think we need to emphasize more of that in our curriculum a little bit more. And there are tools. So if you're doing OpenDSS, if you're doing distribution system modeling, OpenDSS is a free and open software that can be used. And I'll just type it here so that you have a little bit of familiar. It's called OpenDSS. This is a tool you can download for free, and that helps you with modeling distribution systems. For the transmission systems, we use PSLF and PSSC. Both of these are transmission bulk grid level systems. These are what we call phaser models. Meaning they still are not high fidelity, but they're high enough to represent damping. Damping actually happens because of an outcome from electromechanical modes. So, of course, when we say electromechanical, it's the coupling between the electrical side of the generator as well as the mechanical side. And when we talk about oscillations, we see that across large areas, the machines start oscillating, and that's an electromechanical process. Now, if you want damping, you want to make sure that you have sufficient. It's a very complex phenomenon because, let's say that if you have a 6-machine system, you're talking about a 48-order model, and it's a very nonlinear process. So, which means that nonlinearity has to be addressed in your model. The phaser systems are pretty close enough, but we are also finding that that alone is not good enough. When you're thinking about PV inverter-based model, and Albert sir would tell you a lot more about it. If you have a lot of PV systems or wind systems, then we need to have what we call EMT modeling, which is electromagnetic transient. So for that, we use tools like PSCAD, of course, but we also use real-time modeling like RSCAD and OpenRT to do some of those simulations as well. Of course, MATLAB is always another nice go-to package. MATLAB has Simulink and a few other toolboxes that can help with that modeling as well. So we use a combination of all of these depending on what question we're trying to address. But damping in general, that's an important area of study as well. That's a big research area for us. The thing which motivates you to do such great achievement, Snega. Thank you very much for the kind words, Snega. Like I mentioned, I don't think I'm trying to get to a place. I'm not saying that I need to get there. It really is that it's like a dog that's running around once it gets a smell of something, right? Young puppy. And, if there is any smell of food, it doesn't matter where he goes. He just starts chasing, trying to find that smell, where the source of the smell is. To me, I have a similar feel, I think. And for me, it's not food, it's learning. Like wherever I can learn, I always try and see where I can go best find it. It's a very useful attitude, not just for me. That's something that I recommend to my people that report to me as well. So that's all pretty amazing things. But like I said, very simple, learning. But trust me, like that can make a very big difference. Because if you're in a mood of learning, then anything that comes by you, you have the curiosity to learn more and to absorb that information and knowledge and to change yourself to be able to learn from that experience. Whereas if you don't have the learning mindset, it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in MIT, you could be in Stanford, you could be in IIT Delhi, Mumbai, it doesn't matter. If you're not ready to learn, no matter where you are, that's not going to change what you get from it. Always a very excellent talk. I'm sure that this motivated students. Always, thank you very much for your kind words, and thank you very much for reaching out to me like on this opportunity to begin with. I really appreciate it. Is there any opportunity to join us in turn? We did have an opportunity until 2 years ago. This question is from Devasena. So in the past, we have what's called the Bhaskara Awards. So the Bhaskara Awards is from this Indo-US joint partnership, where they select 10 students from India, and they get to come work in a national laboratory. And of course, all of them invariably come to enroll. Until 2 years ago, but this program got changed recently, so there is some difficulty with it. I'll answer your question in a minute, Davis. But there was this opportunity that we had, and this can always come back in the future. So that's something to look out for. But in the past, we have advised students from IIT, IITs in general. But those are opportunities that anybody in India can apply for. And so you might want to keep an eye open for it. And Meena Kumari, madam, back to your question. That is something that we can focus on as well. I can see if there are any important things that we need to focus on, and I can make sure that it's on the radar for the faculty as well as the students at EEE KEC. Is there any, and as for an intern opportunity, we are looking for, I think the only restriction we have is we're looking for graduate interns, which means you should be in a master's or a PhD program, and you should be close to completion. Because we think of internship as opportunity not just for getting work done, but also as an opportunity for us to hire somebody full-time. And so we expect that they're close to finishing their master's or PhD. If any of you are interested in pursuing your higher education, I would be very glad to provide information, to provide you some resources. I'll be very glad to mentor you if there is any interest in that. I don't know if that answered your question, David. Now, the short answer is not with a bachelor's degree alone, but in the future, if there's a master's PhD program you're pursuing, that would be the opportunity for an internship with the NREL. Looks like those are all the questions. I'm not sure if I answered all your questions. If there are any, please feel free to shoot me as well.
Santosh, I think there are no more questions. So no, you have spent the entire evening for us. It's very nice to have you here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now we will let you know about some of the basic courses.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
This is
okay. Just.
That sounds fantastic, ma'am. And you have my email ID as well, and let's keep in touch. And it looks like it's breaking. The internet problems maybe.
No, it's not. It's not. No, you are audible to me also. Okay. No, actually, we will let you know. No, you have give a very good focus on this teaching some courses. No, we will let you know what are the kind of courses actually people do. And it's very great if you accept our students as a mentor-mentee scheme. So something what you have acquired from various learnings may be shared to the students. So probably that also we will work it out. So it's a very great day, Santosh, to see you as like you, and I'm very happy that you have achieved a great. Where in the core field, so there are very few members who achieved like you. So I really congratulate you, and thank you for spending your time with us.
Thank you, ma'am. I mean, none of this would be possible if not for your mentorship and your inspiration and motivation, ma'am. And if not for all the hard work that our faculty put in. I really appreciate it, and on the behalf of the students, I'll tell you that they'll realize it once they get out of university, of the college. And really, I really thank all our faculty for putting up with us and for all the guidance. And this has been a pleasure. And I'm really looking forward to an opportunity like this again. And thank you again for inviting me. This is a great honor. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Santosh. Mahesh.
Ma'am, a kind request, ma'am.
Okay.
Feedback form has been posted in chat box. I request all the students to fill the feedback form for the admins.
Okay, super. Okay.
Thank you,
Mahesh, we will close it.
Ma'am.
We will close it officially.
Yes,
we will close it officially.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Inspiration is great, but to be inspired is the honor. We feel honor and pleasure, sir, on hearing your lecture, and hope, sir, surely it will be a stepping stone for uplifting our career. Makes sense of the past, brings peace for the today, and creates a vision for the tomorrow. With this quote, On behalf of everyone gathered here, I sincerely thank our dearest alumni and the respected chief guest, Dr. Santosh Samamurthy Veta, Group Manager and the Senior Researcher, NRL USA, for the valuable presence time besides 12:30 hours of difference. Thank you so much, sir. And I also thank all the respected faculty members presented here for specializing this event, and a great thanks for all the student friends for the kind cooperation. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
The office bearers of this association and the advisors. It's a forum to congratulate you all. It's a very great start. I hope in the future days also we will have a very good speaker like this. And I officially conclude that our association inauguration was over. So we are in touch with Santosh. So like anything you want to have or discuss with him, he is open to all, and we will have in touch with him for any such activities. So thank you, Santosh. Thank you once again. Thank you.